Captain Vortex-Nine clicked his mandibles in what passed for amusement among the Cathari species. His ship, the Stellar Harmony, drifted silently through the void toward the third planet of this unremarkable star system. Intelligence reports had labeled it as another primitive world, ripe for standard colonization protocols. Oh, how wrong they would prove to be. Sir, First Officer Blip 7's voice crackled through the comm system. We're receiving what appears to be entertainment transmissions from the surface. Vortex leaned back in his bioluminescent command chair, all four of his eyes rolling independently. Entertainment? Let me guess, more ritualistic combat displays. These primitive species always think violence is amusing. Actually, sir, Blip's voice carried an odd tremor. They call it something called, Australian wildlife documentaries. The captain's amusement faded slightly. Wildlife? On most worlds, wildlife meant small, harmless creatures that scurried about eating vegetation. Patch it through to the main viewer. The holographic display flickered to life, showing what appeared to be a bipedal creature with pale skin and an absurdly calm voice. G'day, I'm Steve Irwin, and today we're going to wrestle with one of Australia's most dangerous predators. Vortex's translator struggled with the human accent, but the meaning came through clearly enough. The being on screen was approaching what looked like a scaled death machine with rows of serrated teeth, approximately 4 meters long. Now, crocodiles are absolutely beautiful creatures, the human continued, apparently oblivious to the fact that the beast could easily dismember him. But you've got to be careful, because one wrong move and, crikey, the massive reptile lunged forward with lightning speed. Vortex's entire bridge crew recoiled in horror, expecting to witness the primitive being's demise. Instead, the human somehow managed to leap onto the creature's back, wrestling it into submission while maintaining his cheerful commentary. Beautiful, just beautiful. Now, as you can see, she's not happy about this, but I'm just going to… There we go. The human held the beast's jaws shut with his bare hands. Isn't she gorgeous? Dead silence filled the bridge. Navigator Zap 12's tentacles had gone completely rigid with shock. Sir, he whispered, that creature could easily kill a full squad of our warriors. And this human just… Communications Officer Beep 5 couldn't finish the sentence. Vortex felt his confidence waver for the first time in his 30-year military career. Perhaps this is some sort of artificial construct, computer-generated imagery for their primitive entertainment. Blip's voice cracked as he replied, Sir, we're detecting approximately 7 billion of these humans on the surface, and according to their transmissions, they consider this normal behavior. The documentary continued, showing the human releasing the crocodile back into murky water that Vortex now realized was probably teeming with similar predators. Now, some people think crocodiles are dangerous, Steve continued with that insufferable cheerfulness. But really you just need to understand them. They're only trying to make a living, just like you and me. Only trying to make a living. Tactical Officer Boom 15's voice reached a pitch that shouldn't have been possible for his species. That thing could bite a shuttlecraft in half. The transmission switched to another segment. This time Steve was holding what appeared to be a small, colorful creature. Now, this little beauty might look harmless, but this is actually one of the most venomous animals on the planet. This is a blue-ringed octopus, and its bite contains enough poison to kill 26 adult humans in minutes. The creature was barely larger than the human's palm. Vortex felt his primary heart skip several beats. On the Cathari homeworld, anything that could kill more than 2 individuals was classified as a weapons-grade biological hazard and contained in maximum security facilities. This human was holding it like a pet. The beautiful thing about these little guys, Steve continued, apparently immune to the concept of self-preservation, is that they're actually quite shy. They only bite when they feel threatened. So as long as you're gentle, he stroked the creature's tentacles with one finger. Medical Officer Pulse 3 made a sound that roughly translated to sweet merciful gods of the void. Sir, Blip's voice had dropped to barely above a whisper. I'm reading massive biosigns from the planet's surface. The entire landmass appears to be actively hostile. Define actively hostile. First Officer. Well, sir, they have creatures they call drop bears that apparently fall from trees to attack prey. Something called a honey badger that attacks creatures 50 times its size for no apparent reason. and according to their data files, they have something called Florida. The documentary had moved on to show Steve approaching what looked like a walking tank covered in venomous spines. Now this is what we call a stonefish. It's the most venomous fish in the world, and stepping on one of these bad boys will cause excruciating pain, possible paralysis, and death within hours if left untreated. The camera panned to show dozens of the creatures lying motionless on the ocean floor, perfectly camouflaged. But here's the thing, Steve continued, somehow managing to point at the deadly creature without actually touching it. They're not aggressive at all, they're just trying to avoid being eaten by something bigger and nastier. Something bigger and nastier. Vortex's voice cracked like an adolescent's. The transmission flickered to a new scene. Steve was now in what appeared to be murky water, surrounded by massive shapes moving in the darkness. Now we're here in the territory of the saltwater crocodile, the largest living reptile on Earth. These magnificent creatures can grow up to 7 meters long and weigh over 1,000 kilograms. A shadow moved beneath the surface, something so large it defied rational thought. And the really amazing thing, Steve's voice continued with that same terrifying enthusiasm, is that they're perfectly adapted to their environment. They can hold their breath for up to an hour, they can go months without eating, and they've remained virtually unchanged for millions of years because they're already perfect killing machines. The shadow moved closer. Vortex found himself gripping his command chair with all 6 of his appendages. Of course you've got to be careful in croc territory. They're ambush predators, which means they like to hide just under the surface, and then Steve slapped the water surface, causing several bridge officers to cry out in alarm. Sir, Science Officer Think 19's voice shook with barely controlled panic. I've been analyzing their global ecosystem. This planet doesn't just have dangerous predators, it has dangerous everything. Their plants are toxic, their insects are venomous, their weather patterns could level cities, and they have geological activity that regularly destroys entire regions. Surely the humans live in protected colonies, away from these hazards. No, sir. They've built cities right on top of fault lines, next to active volcanoes, in areas prone to massive storms they call hurricanes, and in floodplains that regularly overflow. They actually choose to live in the most dangerous areas possible. The documentary had shifted again. Now Steve was holding what appeared to be a writhing rope of death. This is an inland taipan, the most venomous snake in the world. One bite from this little guy contains enough venom to kill 100 adult humans. Why does he keep calling them little guys? Boom 15 whimpered. That thing is nearly as long as he is tall. But here's what's really amazing, Steve continued, apparently oblivious to the fact that he was handling concentrated death. They're actually quite docile. They prefer to avoid confrontation, and will only strike if they feel cornered or threatened. Docile? Vortex's voice had risen to a squeak. It could kill 100 beings with one bite, and he calls it docile? The snake's head was less than a meter from Steve's face as he explained its hunting techniques in loving detail. The humans seemed genuinely fascinated by the creature's ability to deliver multiple fatal bites in seconds. Sir, Blip's voice was barely audible now. There's more. According to their historical records, these humans regularly engage in activities they call extreme sports for entertainment. They throw themselves off cliffs with fabric wings, they slide down mountains on wooden planks, and they dive into deep water to swim with predators the size of our shuttlecrafts. They do what for fun. They call them great white sharks, sir. Apparently, some humans consider swimming with them to be relaxing. The transmission showed Steve in a metal cage, submerged in dark water. Massive shapes with rows of serrated teeth glided past the camera, each one large enough to swallow a Kethari warrior whole. Now, great whites get a bad reputation, Steve explained as something the size of a small spacecraft bumped against the cage. But they're really just curious. They're not mindless killing machines. They're highly intelligent predators with complex social behaviors. The creature's head appeared directly in front of the camera, revealing an eye the size of a dinner plate, and a mouth that could easily accommodate several adult Kethari. Look at those teeth, Steve said with genuine admiration, perfectly designed for their lifestyle, and they replace them constantly. A single great white can go through thousands of teeth in its lifetime. Sir, Navigator Zap-12's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm detecting massive sonic signatures from their oceans. These great whites appear to be the smaller predators. There are creatures down there that are significantly larger." "How much larger?" "Well, sir, they have something called a blue whale that's approximately 30 meters long and weighs nearly 200 tons, and according to their records, it's not even a predator. It eats microscopic organisms." Vortex felt his world tilt slightly. If their non-predatory creatures are that size, what do their actual predators look like? "I'm afraid to find out, sir." The documentary continued, showing Steve interacting with creature after creature, each one more terrifyingly lethal than the last. Spiders the size of dinner plates with venom that could dissolve tissue. Jellyfish so toxic that contact with their tentacles could stop a heart in minutes. Fish that could generate enough electricity to power their ship's navigation systems. And through it all, Steve maintained that insufferable enthusiasm, treating each encounter like a delightful meeting with an old friend. "The really wonderful thing about working with dangerous animals," Steve was saying, as he held what appeared to be a living missile with fangs, "is that it teaches you respect for nature. These creatures have survived millions of years because they're perfectly adapted to their environment. Their environment," Vortex whispered to himself, "is apparently designed to kill everything in it." "Sir," Communications Officer Beep 5's voice interrupted his growing panic, "we're receiving a transmission from the surface. It appears to be a greeting." "A greeting? From the Deathworld inhabitants?" "Yes, sir. It's coming from what they call the Australian Department of Tourism." The main viewer flickered, showing a smiling human female, standing in front of what appeared to be a wasteland of red sand and sparse vegetation. The heat distortion in the air suggested temperatures that would be lethal to most known species. "G'day," the human said with that same terrifying cheerfulness that seemed to be universal among their species. "Welcome to Australia. We hear you might be interested in visiting our beautiful country." "Beautiful?" Vortex looked at the desolate landscape behind her. It looked like the surface of a dead moon. "Australia offers unique experiences you won't find anywhere else in the universe." The human continued. "You can swim with our friendly great white sharks, wrestle with our cuddly crocodiles, and meet our adorable funnel web spiders." Each word sent fresh waves of terror through the bridge crew. "And if you're feeling adventurous, you can take a walk through our lovely outback, where the temperature regularly reaches 50 degrees Celsius and the nearest water source might be hundreds of kilometers away." 50 degrees. Medical Officer Pulse 3 gasped. "That's nearly boiling. How are they alive?" "We've got over 20 species of venomous snakes, the world's most dangerous jellyfish, and crocodiles that can leap out of the water to snatch prey from overhanging branches." The video showed exactly that. A massive reptile launching itself completely out of the water to grab what appeared to be a large bird. "But don't worry," the human continued with that disturbing smile. "Most of our wildlife is perfectly safe as long as you don't threaten them, surprise them, corner them, look at them funny, or breathe too loudly in their general direction. Most of their wildlife." Vortex's voice had become a barely audible whisper. "And the best part," the tourism official continued, "our locals are incredibly friendly. They'll be happy to show you around, teach you about our culture, and share stories about that time they wrestled a dingo, outran a cassowary, or survived a box jellyfish sting." The video ended with the human waving cheerfully as something that looked like a feathered missile ran past in the background at impossible speed. "Sir," Blip's voice was trembling now, "I think we may have made a serious miscalculation about this planet." Vortex stared at the blank screen, his mind struggling to process what he'd just witnessed. A planet where the inhabitants considered swimming with apex predators to be recreational activity, where creatures capable of killing hundreds of beings were described as docile, where the tourism department advertised their world's ability to kill visitors in creative and horrible ways as selling points. "First Officer," he said slowly, "please send a message to command." "Yes, sir." "What should it say?" Vortex took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his decision. "Tell them we're going to need a bigger fleet." "Sir." "Much bigger." 3 standard rotations later, the Cathari Armada's most advanced reconnaissance fleet hung in Earth's orbit like nervous predators who had suddenly realized they might be the prey. Admiral Thrust Prime commanded from the bridge of the dreadnought Cosmic Justice, his confidence from the initial briefing now completely evaporated. Report, he demanded, his voice carrying none of its usual authority. Captain Vortex had been promoted to Fleet Intelligence Officer after his enlightening first contact with Earth's entertainment systems. Sir, the situation has deteriorated significantly since our last communication. Deteriorated? How could discovering a primitive species possibly deteriorate? Vortex's mandibles clicked nervously. Well, sir, we've intercepted more of their transmissions. It appears they have something called Florida Man. Florida Man? Is that some sort of military designation? No, sir. It's apparently a subspecies of human that has evolved beyond normal survival instincts. According to their news reports, Florida Man has been observed fighting alligators while intoxicated, keeping venomous snakes as pets, and using explosives to remove unwanted stumps from their property. Admiral Thrust leaned forward in his command throne. Explosives? For landscaping? Yes, sir. They also have records of Florida Man attempting to teach squirrels to water ski, building homemade rockets to prove their planet is flat, and trying to pay for fast food with alligators. The silence on the bridge was deafening. Sir, interrupted Science Coordinator Flash 20. There's more. We've been monitoring their global communication networks, and we've discovered they have an entire planet-wide information system called the Internet, where they share knowledge about survival techniques. Finally, something reasonable. Survival knowledge could be useful for colonization planning. Actually, sir, they use it primarily to share videos of themselves doing inadvisable things to dangerous animals, rating each other's ability to consume toxic substances, and something called memes, which appear to be humorous observations about their daily existence on this death world. Flash's tentacles were trembling as he continued. They have an entire section dedicated to videos of humans deliberately placing themselves in mortal danger for the entertainment of others. They call it YouTube. Show me, Thrust commanded, though his voice suggested he immediately regretted the decision. The main display flickered to life, showing a human male standing next to what appeared to be a pool of bubbling liquid. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to see what happens when you drop a watermelon into molten lava. Molten lava. Weapons Officer Bang 8's voice cracked. Why would anyone voluntarily approach molten lava? The human on screen was wearing minimal protective equipment and standing close enough to the lava pool that the heat distortion was visible. Now some people say this is dangerous, but I've done my research, and as long as you're careful and respect the lava, you should be fine. Respect the lava. Navigator Zip-14 whispered. It's molten rock. It doesn't require respect. It requires several hundred kilometers of distance. The human dropped the watermelon into the lava. The explosion that followed sent molten rock flying in all directions, some landing mere meters from where the human stood. Instead of fleeing in terror, the human laughed with delight. Awesome. Did you guys see that? The steam expansion created a mini eruption. That was way cooler than I expected. He's pleased by nearly dying. Medical Officer Heel 6 observed with clinical detachment. This species appears to have inverted the standard survival response. They seek out dangerous situations rather than avoiding them. The video continued, showing the human explaining the physics of superheated steam expansion while standing next to an active volcanic feature. His enthusiasm was genuinely terrifying. Sir, communications expert Ring 11 interrupted. We're receiving multiple transmissions now. It appears the humans have detected our presence. Military transmissions, threat assessments. No, sir. Tourism advertisements and party invitations. Party invitations. The display changed to show a human female, with an impossibly wide smile standing in front of what appeared to be a structure made entirely of ice. Hello, alien visitors. We're so excited you've come to visit Earth. We'd love to show you around and introduce you to our culture. Behind her, other humans were engaged in what could only be described as ritualized combat, throwing frozen projectiles at each other, while laughing hysterically. As you can see, we're having our annual snowball fight tournament. It's perfectly safe, as long as you watch out for the avalanche zones, hypothermia, and the occasional frostbite. They weaponize frozen precipitation. Tactical Officer Boom noted with growing horror. For fun, the human continued. And after the snowball fight we're planning a nice relaxing swim in our natural hot springs. The water's only about 45 degrees Celsius, so it's perfectly comfortable once you get used to the slight burning sensation. Burning sensation, Thrust repeated slowly. They describe burning as comfortable. Oh, and don't worry about the sulfur content, the human added cheerfully. It's great for your skin, even if it does smell like rotten eggs and can cause respiratory irritation in some species. The transmission switched to another human, this one standing in what appeared to be a frozen wasteland. If you prefer colder climates, you should definitely visit Antarctica. It's only -40 degrees Celsius, and the penguin colonies are absolutely adorable. The camera panned to show creatures that looked like they were wearing formal military uniforms, sliding across the ice at dangerous speeds, while making sounds that could only be described as joyful chaos. Just watch out for the leopard seals, the human continued casually. They're about 4 meters long, weigh up to 600 kilograms, and they hunt by launching themselves onto ice floes to catch prey. But they're really quite playful. Playful, Thrust whispered. A 600-kilogram aquatic predator is playful. Sir, Intelligence Officer Think 21 spoke up. I've been analyzing their historical records. This species has survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and something called the Black Death, which killed 1/3 of their population in some regions. And they recovered from all of this. Not only recovered, sir, they thrived. Each catastrophe seems to have made them more resilient and more creative in their methods of survival. The display showed another human, this one standing in what appeared to be a jungle setting. Welcome to the Amazon rainforest, home to over 10% of known species on Earth, including some of the most beautiful and deadly creatures you'll ever encounter. Something moved in the canopy above the human, something large enough to shake the trees. That's probably just a jaguar, the human said with disturbing calm. They're only the 3rd largest big cat species on Earth, and they have the strongest bite force of any big cat. But don't worry, they prefer to avoid humans, unless they're hungry, protecting their territory, or feeling playful. There's that word again, Bang 8 muttered. Everything on this planet is apparently playful. The human gestured to the jungle around him. The Amazon is home to over 40,000 plant species, and we estimate that about 70% of them have some sort of toxic or medicinal properties. Some can cure diseases, others can kill you in minutes, and a few can do both depending on the dosage. They live in a pharmacy that doubles as a weapons arsenal, Science Officer Flash observed with academic fascination. Remarkable. And the insects, the human continued with that terrifying enthusiasm. We have bullet ants, whose sting feels like being shot, mosquitoes, that carry diseases which have shaped human history, and army ants that can strip a large animal to bones in hours. Something buzzed past the camera, something the size of a small aircraft. Oh, that's just a Goliath beetle, the human explained. They're harmless, unless you count the psychological trauma of encountering something that looks like it belongs in a nightmare. Sir, Vortex interrupted. We're receiving transmission from their global leadership. It appears to be some sort of diplomatic greeting. Finally, perhaps we can establish normal first contact protocols. The display changed to show a collection of humans seated around a large table. They wore what appeared to be formal attire, though their definition of formal seemed to include clothing that could survive hostile environments. Greetings, visitors from space, one of them announced. We are the United Nations of Earth, and we'd like to extend a warm welcome to our planet. At least they understand diplomatic procedure, Thrust muttered. We understand you may have concerns about visiting our world, another human continued. So we'd like to assure you that Earth is perfectly safe for tourism, as long as you take reasonable precautions. A third human held up what appeared to be a datapad. We've prepared a helpful safety guide. Rule 1. Avoid Australia, unless you're accompanied by a trained professional and have comprehensive medical insurance. Rule 2. Do not attempt to pet, feed, or photograph any animal, unless specifically told it's safe by a local guide. Rule 3. Assume all plants are toxic unless proven otherwise. Rule 4. Check weather reports before going outside, as our weather can be energetic. Rule 5. Stay hydrated, wear sunscreen, and always inform someone of your travel plans, as rescue operations can be complicated. Rule 6. If a human tells you something is perfectly safe, Request a second opinion from another human, preferably one with medical training. Rule 7. Florida is restricted to experienced travelers only. The list continued for several more minutes, covering everything from tidal changes to volcanic activity to something called drop bear protocols. Sir, Medical Officer Heel 6's voice was barely audible. I don't think our medical facilities are equipped for casualties from a world where the safety briefing requires 47 separate warnings. And there's something else, Vortex added reluctantly. According to their historical records, when faced with extinction-level threats, these humans don't just survive. They adapt, overcome, and then turn the threat into entertainment, food, or sometimes pets. Yes, sir. Sir, they've domesticated wolves into creatures called dogs, which they treat as family members. They've tamed giant herbivores called horses, which they ride for transportation and sport. And they keep predatory fish in glass containers in their homes for aesthetic pleasure. They keep predators as decoration. Sir, Communications Officer Ring 11, interrupted with obvious panic, we're receiving a new transmission. It appears to be from their military. The display showed a human in what was obviously combat attire, though it looked surprisingly casual, compared to standard military protocols. Hey there, space folks, the human said with a grin that was somehow more terrifying than any threat display. We hear you might be thinking about invasion. That's adorable. Several other humans appeared behind the first, all wearing similar expressions of amused confidence. We just wanted to let you know that Earth has a long and proud tradition of making uninvited guests feel very unwelcome. We've got 5,000 years of experience in creative warfare, and we've never met a problem we couldn't solve with sufficient application of violence and ingenuity. One of the other humans held up what appeared to be a primitive projectile weapon. This is a rifle. It's basically our most basic infantry weapon. It can put a hole through most armor at 1,000 meters. We have about 400 million of them in civilian hands alone. Civilian hands. Thrust's voice was barely a whisper. Oh, and that's just the small arms, another human added cheerfully. We also have things like nuclear weapons, chemical weapons, biological weapons, and some stuff we can't talk about because it's classified. But don't worry, we only use the really nasty stuff when we're feeling creative. The lead human stepped forward. But here's the thing, space buddies. We're actually pretty friendly once you get to know us. We'd much rather have you as tourists than targets. Tourism is way more profitable than warfare, and significantly less messy to clean up afterward. So here's our offer, he continued with that disturbing smile. Come down, visit our theme parks, try our food, meet our people, and learn why Earth is the most interesting vacation destination in the galaxy. Just remember to follow the safety guidelines, respect the local wildlife, and try not to do anything too stupid. And if you decide you'd rather skip the whole invasion thing, another human added, we completely understand. Most species do, once they really understand what they'd be getting into. The transmission ended with all the humans waving cheerfully. The bridge fell into absolute silence. Finally, Admiral Thrust spoke, his voice carrying the weight of a decision that would echo through galactic history. Navigation, set course for the outer rim, best possible speed. Sir? Navigator Zip 14's voice carried a note of hope. Send a message to command. Tell them we're reclassifying Earth from primitive world, suitable for colonizations, to galactic nature preserve. Approach with extreme caution. What about the humans, sir? Thrust looked at the now blank display, remembering the cheerful confidence in those human faces. Let them be. Any species that considers swimming with apex predators to be relaxing recreation and uses molten rock for entertainment is probably best left to govern itself. And sir, Vortex added quietly, I suggest we update our galactic travel guides. Earth should definitely be listed under advanced civilizations, approach only with invitation. Agreed. And add a note, humans available for diplomatic contact, but bring gifts and a very good sense of humor. As the Kethari fleet retreated to what they considered a safe distance, several parsecs away, the humans of Earth continued their daily lives. They swam with sharks, wrestled with crocodiles, climbed mountains, and explored the depths of their oceans, blissfully unaware that they had just become the galaxy's most respected and feared tourist destination. And somewhere in Australia, Steve Irwin's legacy lived on, As another wildlife enthusiast approached a venomous snake with nothing but enthusiasm and a camera crew, ready to show the universe that Earth's most dangerous creatures were really just misunderstood neighbors, the galaxy would never be the same.